Hi everyone. My name is Rachel Huerman. I'm the Director of Alumni Relations. We're going to go ahead and kick off our very first industry expert virtual roundtable discussion. This week we have the financial industry. So we have a group of really great panelists here to talk about the finance industry, what to expect right now looking for jobs, kind of trends to be on the lookout for. Just a little housekeeping information for you all. I have shared my screen that has all the information on the panelists as well as our hosts for today. If you're having any issues with your Zoom, it's usually recommended that you use your computer audio to hear everything. You will be muted the whole time, so you can't speak during this, but you can use a question and answer box located at the bottom of your screen. You can type in questions if you have any along the way. And there's also a chat function at the bottom of your screen, so if you want to chat in your information, chat back and forth, you can certainly use that function as well. I know a lot of people use that to kind of introduce themselves to other people who might be on the call. That way you can network, connect on LinkedIn after the fact and things like that. And for those of you who might work with others who were interested in this roundtable discussion but couldn't make it, we are recording this session, so we will have it on our website, and you can email us directly at alumni@lindenwood.edu, and we would be happy to send you the recording. So I'm going to kick it off to Shannon Wright. He's going to introduce himself. He's one of our co-hosts, and we will start from there. Shannon?
Hello, everyone. Yes, my name's Shannon Wright. I'm the Assistant Director for Career Services here at Lindenwood University. And I just wanted to thank all of our guests. We appreciate this so much in the career services realm. I can't stress enough how great it is to provide this information to both our students and our alumni. And even I know we have some faculty who are on the call as well. So I just wanted to take a moment to say thank you and thanks for providing your expertise. And I'll turn it over to Donnie.
Hi everyone, I'm Donnie Whelan. I'm the Director of Corporate Recruiting for Lindenwood University. I'm proud two-time alum of Lindenwood. I was a student athlete and then came back as an evening student to complete my MBA. And part of my role is promoting lifelong learning within organizations, some of our local corporate partners, whether that be our online evening graduate programs or some of our PACE programs. Those are certificates, certifications, non-credit options. So I want to thank all of our guests today for joining us and spending time out of their busy day to provide some guidance to our students and alumni. And so just wanted to give each guest an opportunity to introduce themselves. So first we have Elena Gibson. If you could just tell us a little bit more about yourself, about your role, and about your organization, and we'll circle back around to the other two and then get this started.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here. So my name is Elena Gibson. I'm a recruiting manager at Citibank. So Citi is, the worldwide financial institution that many of you are likely familiar with, that encompasses credit card services, banking, lending, and investing services. We have a very large site in O'Fallon, Missouri, so not far down the road from Lindenwood. And at that site in particular, we have employees supporting our mortgage business, our wealth management business, and our anti-money laundering groups. I personally oversee the recruitment of mortgage originations as well as some mortgage risk. And I'm happy to say that at our Citi site in O'Fallon right now, we currently have 52 jobs aligned to that site. So very happy to say that we are hiring right now and very much a growing part of our St. Louis employment community.
Awesome. So next we have Demong Buckley. He's the Vice President, Director of Talent Acquisition at First Bank. If you just want to introduce yourself, tell us a little bit more about your role and your organization.
Yeah, thanks, Donnie. Again, glad to be here. Again, Vice President, Director of Talent Acquisition with First Bank. So First Bank, family-owned bank here in St. Louis, owned by the Dearberg family, which I'm not sure how many people know, but owned by the Dearberg family and has been over 100 years now. We operate not only in Missouri, but Southern Illinois, Kansas, Nebraska, as well as throughout California as well. As far as me and my role, so I'm responsible for really the hiring and recruitment, if you will, throughout the bank, as well as a team of onboarding and employee relations specialists as well with the bank, as well as adding a piece of diversity and inclusion, and as we continue to build on those efforts within the bank.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us today. We really, really appreciate it. Next, we have Jamie Katz. She's a Senior Talent Acquisition Partner, Campus and Diversity at TD Ameritrade. Welcome, Jamie, if you want to do a quick introduction.
Yeah, thanks, Donnie, and good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for having me today. Lindenwood has been such a fantastic partner of ours, so we appreciate the opportunity to participate in this event. My name is Jamie Katz. I am a Senior Talent Acquisition Specialist in our HR department at TD Ameritrade. I've been with our firm almost 7 years now, and I have held a variety of roles, including this year helping with the program management of our summer internship program, which of course looks quite different now that we're all virtual. For those of you not familiar, TD Ameritrade is an online brokerage firm in the financial services industry, offering an electronic trading platform for things like stocks, options, mutual funds, and more. Although we are in financial services, the core of our business is really built on technology, so we're also in what you would call the fintech industry. Our purpose is to transform lives and investing for the better, and that really is our rally cry in everything that we do. So again, thanks for having me.
Thank you all for joining us. So I'm going to hand it over to Shannon and let him get started with a few questions and kind of start this dialogue for this virtual roundtable discussion.
Thanks, Donnie. Yeah, just to kind of give everybody an idea on how we're going to go about this, we've got a few pre-prepared questions for each of the panelists. What I'll do is I'll direct each question towards one of our panelists, and then I'll kind of open it up to everybody, each of the others, to kind of follow up on that question if they would like, and we'll just kind of go through these questions, and we'll obviously like I said, we'll hit some questions at the end for any of our participants out there, and we'll go from there. All right. So first question, I'm going to aim it at you, Jamie. So we've seen an extraordinary amount of change in the economy in a short period of time. I mean, that's obviously one of the reasons we're doing these roundtables, is kind of focus on the changes in industry and changes in recruiting. Can you tell me the changes that you've seen, within your both within your firm and within the industry, in the changes in recruiting, and what you're seeing in right now?
Yeah, so Shannon, wow. Yes, for those of us who are still lucky to be working, even though we are working, it is quite different, isn't it? At TD Ameritrade, our entire workforce is working remotely, and we're taking a very conservative approach to return to the office, with no plans of doing that anytime soon. We're very successful all working remotely, and so we're going to continue the course until things change on the COVID-19 front. From a recruiting perspective, it was pretty easy to shift to conduct, all of our interviews to video interviews. We always preferred an in-person interview when possible. It gave the candidates an opportunity to see our environment and our culture firsthand. But video interviews, they happen quite often as well. So, this was one of the more easier items to lift and shift within the talent acquisition space. Onboarding virtually, that's a whole different ball game, and that was a little bit more difficult to accomplish, but we've seen success in onboarding hundreds a month today virtually. So we've figured that one out as well. Within our industry, there has been so much change in the online brokerage sector. Commission-free trades just happened 8 months ago, and, it's really been a whirlwind ever since. The industry and our technology is changing more quickly than, anyone could have imagined. And even though our technology, it continues to get more automated, right? But we continue to need and hire people. The talent and people that we hire have always been our biggest asset. So our hiring hasn't slowed down. The need for talent, fluent in financial services with drive and motivation, it's definitely still there. And though, your interview might look a little different and you might not step into an office or meet your coworkers face to face for some time, we continue to hire and onboard hundreds of people a month. In St. Louis alone, last week we had about 38 new hires start with us. And this week we have about 44, all onboarding and starting virtually and, starting from home and working from home for now. We have changed up our interview questions a little bit to include questions around the capability of working from home and everyone's comfort level to do so, with, of course, TD Ameritrade providing, all the necessary equipment to do so. So yeah, lots of change.
Perfect. And it's always good from our point of view too to hear that employers are still hiring and still still onboarding employees at this time too, because I know some of our, especially our recent grads who have not really had the experience with the job search are wondering, are people hiring? Are they still recruiting? And so it's good to hear that that's out there, that you guys are out there doing that. And I would throw that same question, to Elena or Demong too. I know you guys are in a slightly different, your organizations are slightly different. Do you have anything that you may be able to add or a slightly different experience?
Yeah, I can.
Sorry.
Elena, go ahead. Yeah, go ahead, Elena.
I will echo the sentiment that, we have had to move to virtual interviewing just for the safety of both candidates and then our employees. So that's very much a transition that has occurred. But, with modern technology, it hasn't been, we've been able to utilize, video conferencing and whatnot to allow there to still be a bit of a personal touch, but then also just to echo Jamie's sentiments, we've continued to hire as well. There are things that have happened in this crisis that have actually spurred additional hiring in the financial services industry. So we actually have quite a bit more work in some areas that we need to accomplish. And so that's meant hiring. So it's a different angle. So we know that many industries are certainly struggling right now, but we have been in the position that we need to hire. So Demong, I'll hand it over to you.
Thanks. Yeah. So I'll again add on to that, but I'll say banking naturally is pretty conservative, I think. And so for us, it was the transition of, nah, we can't work from home, or these positions are, kind of in the office positions, to really embracing that new norm. Well, I guess we could, now work from home. I guess we can now conduct more of these interviews remotely and so forth without any hitch. I would say from a recruiting standpoint, what it's at least done for me, it's increased my relationships, I would say, with a lot of companies, universities, things like that, just to see not only what are they doing to also like Lindenwood, like what are they doing to also get students out there, whereas normally, you can stop by and, just kind of have a meeting with someone within career services or what have you, but I like that, universities have started to do slightly different things where you can have a virtual interviews, and you can do things like that with interns or people that are looking at just graduated and are freshly in the market now and everything. And so it's definitely caused me on my end to definitely increase some of my relationships, even with other banks and companies in the industry and in the area, to see what they're doing, to adjust during this time. So it definitely changed from that standpoint for me.
All right, thanks everybody. I can say it's always great to hear from from everybody's perspective, because everything's slightly different for everyone. Kind of moving on to the next question. I'm going to direct this one towards you, Elena. A lot of people have found themselves either seeking a new position at no fault of their own. Maybe they've been furloughed, maybe their position has been cut. We also have a lot of students or alumni who have recently graduated who are out searching for that first position right now. What advice would you give to someone in the job search right now? And more specifically, what platform should they be using? And are there any key strategies that you could kind of direct them towards?
Sure, absolutely. And I will say that I think the fundamentals of the job search process remain the same. It's the, availability of jobs, unfortunately, that has changed to a degree in certain industries. But one of the first things, you need to do is obviously do the heavy lifting on your resume, invest a lot of time in it, and be sure it's well done. Proofread it, and honestly have it ready to go at a moment's notice, because there are postings that can be up for a very short period of time. And if you tell yourself, oh, I'll get to it next weekend, it may be gone by then. So you do need to have it ready to go and ready to submit. That being said, you do always want to make sure your resume is aligned to the posting. So if there are 2 areas you're interested in pursuing, be sure that you submit, don't submit an accounting resume to a sales job, right? So make sure that you have that focus aligned on your resume. With regard to platforms, having a digital presence is absolutely critical in this day and age, and even more so given that we can't have in-person job fairs right now, or there aren't very many of them to say the least. So your digital presence really is a must. Many companies do utilize resume search engines. So you may look at a website and think, does anyone even really check this? Absolutely, they do. So there are websites out there like Monster, Career Builder, and Indeed to put your resume on, and the companies come to you, which is really, one of the best case scenarios in that regard. So be sure to utilize those. I know Lindenwood also has Handshake available. So that is one platform that many companies are also partnering with and utilizing. And then, of course, I would be remiss not to mention LinkedIn. So the really great thing about LinkedIn is it's not just a resume, but it's also essentially your business card and your profile that will follow you throughout your professional career. So let's say you start at one company, make connections there, develop your network there, both in person and digitally. That LinkedIn connectivity and community stays with you. So then you move to your next role, you have the opportunity to grow that platform and grow your connections, and it continues to be an asset to you. So absolutely invest in a LinkedIn profile if you have not at this time, because it is truly the modern business card and the modern way to connect, and companies research heavily on LinkedIn for candidates for their roles. I will say also that the more information you have on that LinkedIn profile, the more likely you are to come up in a search, as recruiters use Boolean or keyword searches to try and identify candidates for their roles. So if your LinkedIn profile is very sparse, you likely will not receive a lot of activity out of it. But if you're very thorough and detailed in it, then it's more likely that you will start to get some connections and requests from companies. So do absolutely take as much time with that as you do with your resume. I encourage you to put a picture up. I encourage you to be visible on it and show that you're active, versus having it sit there and be quiet for 6 months to a year. That's not benefiting you at all. So those are the suggestions that I absolutely would make at this time.
Thanks, Elena, and thanks for the plug for Handshake. Thank you. And same as the first question, I'll turn it over to Demond or Jamie. Do you have anything to add? Any different perspective?
Yeah, I can add a piece. I was giving Jamie the floor. I didn't want to jump.
I was waiting on you.
But no, I would completely echo everything that Elena had to say. I think that all kind of falls into this bucket of building your personal brand. It really does, and what does that look like? Whether that's, the classes that you're in with your professors, it's like, what is your brand? And I think that you have to become good at and comfortable and being uncomfortable, right? You hear that a lot, and especially in times like this where, again, you're graduating, you're wondering what companies are doing. You can't be afraid, I think personally, to put yourself out there a little bit as well. If it's reaching out to hiring managers via LinkedIn, to discuss your background, or even using your resources within the university, again, whether it's posting your stuff on Handshake, whether it's utilizing your professors and maybe even contacts that they may know within the industry. So I think it's definitely beneficial from that standpoint. And again, in regards to platforms, I completely swear by LinkedIn and the information that's on there. But then I'll also add in there too, in regards to what someone could do, is to just be mindful also of, your other social media platforms as well. and what you're communicating out there on those. Again, because again, when we're talking about building your personal brand and what that is, a lot of organizations, they do, you know, look at your Facebook or other stuff just to see what type of things you're involved in and so forth. And if, you know, you'll align well with their organization. So those are some of the things that I would say I would at least look at or take into consideration.
Yeah, same. I mean, I agree with both of you completely. I think we're very reliant upon LinkedIn, of course, right? If we see misspellings or weird formatting or things of that nature on your LinkedIn profile, then we aren't reaching out to you. So those things are things to keep in mind as well. You know, we see who you follow, we see, you know, all those sorts of things, right? So if you're applying at a financial services firm and you don't follow any financial services company, we're going to think twice, like, how serious are you? So it's things like that. I mean, we really dig in the weeds with LinkedIn. We have a full team of sourcers that live in LinkedIn all day long, and we search for entry-level new grads all the time. I have a current search going for those graduating in 2020 and those graduating in 2021. So we're out there, we're looking for you. So make sure that you can be found and that you're representing yourself well on those types of platforms. The second most used platform by our firm is probably Indeed. So those are the probably top two platforms that we use the most at our firm. So.
All right, thanks everybody. And I just want to give a quick reminder too, I saw a question pop up. I just want to remind all the participants out there, if you have questions or, you know, if you want to expand upon one of the questions that we're asking, maybe you are looking for something different, feel free down in the Q&A to throw that question in there for our panelists, and we'll get to those at the end. All right, so moving on to the next question, and Demong, this one's coming your way. And we touched on this a little bit in the last question too, but one of the purposes of this discussion is to emphasize the importance of building relationships and how that comes into play with recruiting and finding a position. So how do you see personally, you know, in your role, how do you see networking impact the job search? And do you see connections back to an alma mater or with fellow alumni coming into play during a job search? Have you seen any, you know, maybe someone either within First Bank or someone that you know personally where those things have come into play?
Yeah, so I think you hear it all the time, you know, especially now where people talk about it's not what you know, but who you know, and those type of comments, right? You know, so I completely agree and support the idea of networking and relationship building, and without a doubt encourage students and anyone for that matter to be involved with, you know, other outside social organizations, student unions, different user groups or networking groups. I know prior to here, I did IT staffing, and, you know, and it was definitely common things for developers and programmers, things like that, to be in different user groups, you know, and just really networking with each other. And you see it all the time then, that when opportunities open up, they reach out to people that they know. You know, it's sort of, for example, if someone were to come in and ask me, hey, Demong, we're hiring for recruiters, do you know anybody? I know a ton of recruiters, right? Because I've worked with those individuals, you know, but it comes back to those relationships that I had. I know the good ones and I know the not so good ones, right? And so again, we go back to that branding piece, but I'll say by building relationships and being involved in these different organizations, individuals naturally feel more comfortable referring people to the organization or even to other connections that they may have, you know, when they know this person's reliable, somebody that's dependable, somebody, you know, who's also just takes their career, you know, and as something that's obviously important to them, you know. And I just can recall personally, you know, even fresh out of college, I worked at Enterprise Rent-A-Car, and it was nothing for me to get 10 of my fraternity brothers on based on people that I knew, right? And I knew the type of the culture they had, the type of people that they were looking for, you know, driven, motivated, those type of things. And so again, I definitely encourage individuals to be involved, you know, if that's on campus and in different, you know, social organizations, without a doubt, companies definitely like to see that stuff.
Great. I'm going to say, one thing I want to remind everybody too is that a lot of people are thinking because of the COVID situation that networking is more difficult. And yes, it is, but you're networking right now. You're online. That's why we have all of our contact information out there. Everybody who's out on this call can network with everybody who's participating in this call. So I just wanted to throw that out there to everyone. Hey, you're networking now. Before I turn it over to Elena and Jamie, do you have anything else to add to that?
I mean, I would echo the sentiments, and we at Citi have an employee referral program. We want our employees to refer people that they know to us, and if you get connected with an employee, they're more likely to do that, right? If you have that relationship. So it's definitely something that companies actively encourage and see tremendous value in. So it's certainly to anyone who's looking, it's to their benefit to be sure to network extensively. So.
Yeah, and same, right? I mean, we have a great referral program as well. And so, the networking piece, I mean, what I'll add to that is, if you're an introvert and, networking kind of gets you out of your comfort zone, if that makes sense. And now more than ever, once we have the opportunity to come together in groups and to come together, and we might not be shaking hands, we might be bumping elbows still or what have you, but it might be a little bit more uncomfortable later on down the road to get out and to start networking again, especially if you're an introvert and you're enjoying the stay-at-home time, right? So I would encourage you to do it, get out of your comfort zone, and networking as much as possible, whether it be virtually, and even if it's out of your lane, right? So, find something that you're passionate about, and, once we're able to start volunteering again and doing things of that nature, I encourage you to do it. It creates a better interview whenever you sit down with someone. It creates more opportunity for you to make a connection with someone else, and definitely we see a lot of value in that networking piece.
And I'll say definitely use again, LinkedIn for the tool that it is. It'll show you level 1, level 2 connections that you may have, and if somebody is connected to somebody in an organization that, maybe you're looking to get into, I would definitely strongly suggest, utilizing, those relationships and leaning on those relationships, or at least asking somebody to, make the connection. And I'm telling you, it works all the time outside of, my day-to-day job. I coach high school football, and I have buddies that work at universities, and I tell them, hey, can you connect me with this coach? And it's based on relationships and who you know, so.
All right, thank you. And kind of moving on to the next one, I'm going to direct this towards you, Jamie. We touched on it a little bit earlier too, the move to virtual interviewing. So do you have any tips for virtual interviews? I mean, a lot of students and a lot of alumni are going to start experiencing this now, and maybe they've never experienced it before. Do you have any tips for that? And maybe are there any common mistakes that you're seeing now?
Yeah, I mean, whether these are tips or reminders or common sense, I don't know. But I guess first and foremost, I would say, test your technology and equipment several times before the actual interview. Have a phone charger ready to go just in case you need it, because a lot of the times, we do our hiring manager interviews via WebEx, and, a lot of the people who are interviewing are leveraging their iPhone or iPad or what have you. And so if it goes dead in the middle of an interview, not a good sign. So have a phone charger nearby if you need it. And, pay attention to the background, right? I mean, a messy bed, isn't ideal for the backdrop of your interview. I mean, we have to make do with what we have. I mean, my bed's right behind me, right? But, it's made, right? And there's not dirty clothes everywhere. So, so we have to make do with what we have, but make sure it's, at least put together, right? I guess I would also say, make sure you dress the part, even though it's not an in-person interview. Treat it like it is and dress professionally. And the last thing I'll mention, which might be kind of funny to say, but warm up your voice. That might sound weird, but when working from home, sometimes your voice can sound like you just woke up late into the day, being that you might not be talking as much, right? You might be home by yourself for a couple of hours, or, you know, your kids might leave early in the morning and you might not say a few words until the afternoon. So talk to yourself out loud the day of the interview and get your vocals warmed up. That way you're not sounding like you're just rolling out of bed at 1 p.m. for your interview. So.
Great. I was gonna say, and that last bit, that is actually something I didn't think about. But I mean, a lot of times we find ourselves, you know, going an entire morning without really speaking to someone when you're at home, and it wouldn't,
Right.
wouldn't have even occurred to me to, you know, bring that up. So thanks for bringing that up, Demong and Elena.
Yeah.
I'll turn it over to you too.
Yeah, those are all those are all great. I think I got a case of that. I have to clear my throat a little bit over here. But no, those are all great. And I would say obviously, you know, with the dress piece of it, you know, you want to make sure that you got your hair together. Well, I don't have that problem, but you have your hair together. You don't want bedhead or anything like that, you know. And I'll also say sometimes when you're having these interviews, I think we have a tendency to just be kind of fidgety, you know, so it's kind of leaving the keyboard alone, those type of things. And then they always talk about too, good lighting and everything. You don't want it to look like you're inside of a cave or anything, right? You know, so those are just some of the small things that I would, you know, also add. And sometimes it can get tricky too with the microphone piece of it, you know, whether to be on mute or not on mute. You know, I think, you know, whenever you come onto the meeting, you should definitely be on mute and then taken off mute, because obviously we don't want the alien echo sound, you know, that always gets annoying. And obviously no snacks or anything like that before you start the interview or anything. So.
Elena, anything to add?
No, I think we've covered it quite thoroughly, other than just saying for all these situations, have a plan B, right? I mean, just have a plan B and always have the recruiter or hiring manager's contact information at the ready, because let's say your best laid plans fall apart. You know, we've all had things happen. I had to send my family away for this session, right? So nobody would walk in. So even the best laid plans we know can sometimes go awry. So just be sure you have that contact information and you're ready to, you know, fix whatever may go wrong. So.
And thanks for bringing that up, because I can't tell you how many times in the last couple of months I've had to switch from Wi-Fi to hotspotting my phone on the fly to try to make sure that things are working. So it's always making sure that plan B is there. All right, so
I'll add to that if I can add one more thing. I'll say smile. When you're in the interviews, just smile. I mean, that's huge. You know, I mean, obviously you come off more personable, you know, and not just a stone face, so to speak. So that'd be the last piece that I would add also.
Yeah, and that's something that I've had a lot of students and alum who, you know, since they've been doing more online interviewing, mention is that they're like, it's so hard to get across a personality, it's so hard to read people. And I feel like the only way you can overcome that is just through practice. And so it's practice, practice, practice. And that's why we're here. So moving on to the next question for Elena. So as a kind of as a follow-up to number 4, what do you look for in the answers in those interviews? Are there any specific things that you want to see in those answers when candidates are interviewing? And then where do you suggest that they go to prepare for those interviews?
So broadly speaking, I would say there are 3 fundamental things that we're always looking for. First, interest in the role. Jamie alluded to that earlier. We want to see that this is something you have researched and spent time thinking about and have a genuine interest in. Make sure you explicitly state that too. Don't assume that the way you're phrasing things, you know, if you don't flat out say it at the start and the end of the interview, got that piece across. So be sure to explicitly state your interest and, you know, that you're excited to be talking with either the recruiter or the manager about the role. Secondly, certainly looking for skills that match the requirements of the position, and I'll talk about that in a little more detail. But obviously, you know, that's a critical component that we're seeking out there. And then third, the strong communication skills, both written and verbal, are critical in an organization and critical to so many roles and critical to your advancement too, once you do find a role. So always be looking for opportunities to improve your communication skills and don't take that piece for granted. With regard to the actual content of your answers that you provide, I highly recommend first looking at of course, the company website and then the job description. But as you do that, take the job description and, not to oversimplify it, but line by line, go through it and match accomplishments that you've made to that description. It's a good way to focus and bring to your own memory and to light, the things that you have done that do match the requirements of the role. Oftentimes people will actually bypass positions that perhaps they should have applied to because they just look at it quickly and think, oh, I don't have enough experience for that, or oh, I haven't done enough of that. And in reality, they may very well be qualified enough for, first steps and to be determined, right? So take a look at the description and the bullets of the requirements and write out for yourself where you match up. Secondly, in addition to that, I always recommend making a list of 4 to 5 accomplishments or situations that you've been in that highlight your skill set and what you're able to bring to the role that you are applying for. The reason I say 4 or 5 is you don't want to keep bringing up the same example in an interview. You want to show the breadth of your experience. And so having 4 or 5 scenarios really thought through where you have your accomplishments highlighted will allow you to bring them up quickly and have them a little more committed to memory. I personally think it's fine to have notes in front of you in an interview, whether on video or in person with a manager. You want them to be neat. You don't want to be reading straight from them, but you can have them there to help you recall things that you would like to discuss about your accomplishments and skills. So an easy way to think of this, and maybe everyone has heard this before, but I find it just a very helpful way to remember, is the STAR technique. So situation, task, action, result. Tried and true. It will help you think through what you've done and all the steps that it took to get to that end result. So be sure to utilize that. There's a wealth of material online if you look that up. And I know you had asked about what resources are available. Many of those career sites that we mentioned, Indeed, Monster, and Career Builder, all have potential interview questions that you can practice with a friend, coworker, colleague, family member. I think what's most important is just to get in the habit and becoming more comfortable answering the questions and different kinds of questions. You'll never know exactly what questions you will be asked, right? But if you are comfortable pulling from your experiences, you can frame them up in a way that's appropriate to the question that's being asked. So the one thing I will say is, of course, try and keep your examples related to the role and tie them back into the role. So, that can be difficult at times when you're on the spot and you can only think of one thing, but you want to try and make sure that you tie it back to the position that you're applying for, because you do want to, one, show your skill set, but also, again, continue to convey that interest in the role. So that is a very, very quick overview of the resources that I see are out there. Again, just to summarize, write down your experiences, really commit them to memory and have solid notes, and utilize the resources that are readily available for sample interview questions on career pages like Indeed, Career Builder, Monster, all of those. So.
All right, thank you. And I say that's one thing that we try to hammer home when we're talking with students is research and prepare. Run through the, when we're talking about behavioral questions and using the STAR method, it's run through a lot of those questions so that when you're in the interview, you're ready to answer. You already have the scenarios running through your head. One other shameless plug I'm going to give for us too, that we recently, actually this morning, just brought live on our website a resource for students and alumni called Big Interview. It's actually going to allow you to go in and practice interview virtually. So if you're interested in that, it's on our career services website live this morning. So we have that availability now for anybody who wants to go in and practice virtual interviewing. And so you can learn a little more through the career services website. All right, so now my shameless plug over. I will turn things over to Jamie and Demong. Do you have anything to add?
No, that's great that you're offering that, Shannon, to your students. That's I would definitely take advantage of that, practicing, especially from the virtual perspective now. Definitely something I would take advantage of. And no, I think Elena hit on all the points. I mean, I was even taking notes over here, like, oh yeah, that's a good idea. So no, she answered that question very well. Similarly, we do we look for students to answer in the STAR method as well. And, we do, a lot of our hiring managers base their questions, of course, behavior-based skills type questions, right? So it's a lot of tell me about a time when, or tell me how you did this, or tell me how, and it's all about, that storytelling. So being prepared to tell those stories. And Elena had great advice in saying, come up with 4 to 5, because you're right. Being in an interview, whenever someone goes back to the same one example, it kind of rings a bell and says, wait a minute, is this the only experience that you have? Is this one time? So great advice.
Yeah, definitely. I guess the big affirmation for me is that I'm crossing everything off my list. Like, all right, they're saying it all. That's good stuff. I like it. I know we talked about answers, but then I always think about posture too, and nonverbals, when we talk about communication as well. And so that's something that I stress, or that I see sometimes. The other thing I'll say is when you're delivering whatever example it may be, if it's a behavioral based interview or what have you, or even, just kind of based on your skills, then delivering that answer with confidence as well. I think opposed to kind of mumbling through it, it doesn't give the impression that you really understand, or you really actually did that particular task. And so I always like to listen to people articulate what it is that they did in their last job, and what their experience has been. And that truly, if they're able to walk me through what that task was, and like kind of step by step, that lets me personally know that they lived it, and they're not just kind of, just kind of going through the motions, if you will. And then the only thing that I'll add to that is obviously practice, practice hearing that example come off of your tongue, whether it's in the mirror, you hear it all a lot, but, maybe it's cliche, but I think personally it works, and I always kind of put on my coach's hat here now, where I always tell my players, 5 P's, proper preparation prevents poor performance. So if you prepare right, and you prepare for it, and you practice it, then, once it's time to deliver and show up, I mean, you're gonna do an amazing job. So.
Perfect. All right, so we're getting closer to the end. I just want to remind everybody, if you got questions, throw that in the Q&A down there. I'm going to have my last directed question, then we'll kind of have a general question at the end. So the next one is for you, Demong. So continuing education and professional development opportunities are something that we like to focus on in higher ed, obviously. So how do education and continued personal and professional development impact the job search, or impact, do you take that into consideration when recruiting, and how do they impact potential growth within your organization as well? So once you've already started a position, how do continuing to professionally progress, does that impact an individual with your organization?
Yeah, so we've personally added this to our leadership model. So as we look to not only bring people into the organization, but as we also continue to develop and train individuals within the organization. So as an organization, we've made the personal commitment when we hire to try to target individuals who are lifelong learners. So we feel that those people who really take the personal commitment to better themselves personally and professionally will be individuals who also, naturally look to drive initiatives within the organization. So I feel like it drives the job search, I guess, because now people are also looking for positions that actually have a true career path, and somewhere in a position that really, a position I would say that really adds value, if you will, to that person's career. And like I said, for me, it's always important too, from the standpoint that when we look at being able, all companies at this point, I think, are looking to attract, hire, and retain talent. So we want to make sure that we're also able to compete with other individuals, in the market as well for that top talent. And typically it's from those individuals who are looking to continue to grow personally and to push themselves professionally as well.
Great. I'm going to say, and of course, for higher ed, we always like to hear that. So I'll kind of turn it over. Elena and Jamie, do you guys have anything to add? Any different perspective?
Yeah, I think when you are researching a company to work for, I think you should be asking the types of questions as to what sort of professional development opportunities will I have once I onboard, and those types of questions I think are very important when selecting your next employer. But in the same regard, right, the questions that, we find ourselves asking applicants are, how have you continued to foster your development during the time of quarantine, right? Like, how have you made yourself better? Binge watching Netflix, shows isn't really what we're looking for. We want to hear about, the latest book you've read, or, a specific blog that you follow, or how you continue to develop, both personally and professionally. And, we continue to look for those lifelong learners as well. So.
And the only thing I would add to that, and I echo all their sentiments, is that, a company can have the best, tuition reimbursement program or best resources available for continuing education, whether formal or just ongoing workshops. But if someone doesn't take advantage of them, they're all for naught. At Citi, we really emphasize that we want our employees to go and find those things, and we're there to support them and get them those resources. But we want to see ownership of that professional development and your education and your career. So I think that will come across in interviews too. So it applies to continuing ed, right? It's not just about, what happens to fall in your lap or what's available to me, but also what have I done to push myself in this regard.
All right, perfect. And so we're down to the last question, and I'm just going to kind of, it's going to be the same question for each of you. I really just want to know, give me one piece of advice that you would give to a job seeker now. What would you want them to take away? Either this presentation, or just a personal piece of advice that you give to job seekers. And I'll start with you, Elena. I'll let you take that first.
This isn't necessarily specific to like interviewing or whatnot. My first piece of advice would of course be take all of this in, because there was a lot of very helpful content provided. But outside of that, I just like to remind people, and this was pre-COVID, during COVID, post-COVID, it'll be the same way. There's an element of the job search process that does come down to numbers, right? Every position you apply to, there's a certain number of applicants, and you're not going to get everyone. But the more you apply to, the more networking you do, the higher chance that you have a success. So I know, especially in an environment like this, it can be very challenging and it can be discouraging at times. And so I think it's helpful to just take a step back at some point in time and remind yourself that there's an element of the numbers and the odds in play with all of this too, and not to, you always want to better yourself, but not take things too personally or become too down on yourself in your search. And I just feel like that's important to convey, especially at a time like this when it is so trying out there right now. So that's what I would like to share.
All right, thanks, Elena. Demond, I'll turn it over to you.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I mean, being able to stay positive in those times, during these times, I think can be extremely tough. But then I also think about, the preparation, right, and making sure you're prepared now, so that as opportunities do come and present themselves, that you're ready to go. And you're not still building your resume, adding to your resume when the people that personally you're competing with out there now are already set and ready to go. So again, the one piece of advice that I'll add to that, I guess, is what I just tell people: hey, participate in your own rescue. Don't wait for people to provide you with answers or give you opportunities or anything like that. You have to be willing to go out and seek it out on your own, research it on your own, find the information that you're looking for that's going to get you the result and the answer that you're looking to receive. So again, if it's putting yourself in this uncomfortable spot to email, reach out to a manager, or ask for a referral from a professor, or whatever it may be, don't be afraid to, put yourself in that uncomfortable spot, especially if that small piece of uncomfortableness leads to a lifetime of pleasure, you know, of getting the opportunity you want. And I think it's all worth it. So.
Perfect. Thanks. Jamie, I'll give you the last word.
Yeah. So, yeah, I agree with all of that. Don't be too hard on yourself. But if you find yourself, you know, starting, you know, from ground zero, if this makes sense in your job search, meaning that you think you want to go in financial services or you think you want to go in higher education, but you're not sure exactly what your exact role might be, you know, my piece of advice is, you know, to seek the company first in your job search. And, you know, what I mean by that is seek a company that aligns with your values and beliefs, a company that will promote your growth and development, and then seek the position second, right? Because if you're hired at a company that you believe in, the position and the opportunity you seek, it will come. And, you know, I'll end with saying, you know, kudos to all of you who are attending this roundtable. You know, you're doing exactly, you know, what you need to be doing right now. So kudos to all of you.
And that kind of thing up. Thank each of you for answering those questions. Now we are going to turn it over. It looks like we have a few questions that are out there from our viewers. So I'm going to say, I know Rachel and Donnie are going to kind of throw those out, and we'll do that now.
Okay, so we've had a few questions come in. Somebody asked, is it preferable for students to use a premium account on LinkedIn versus a regular LinkedIn account? Throw it out to any of our panelists.
I'm not sure what the huge difference is. I know one is maybe the amount of emails that you can send out to different people and things like that. Personally, I have, you know, just kind of the regular account, and then we as a company have a, you know, a recruiter account that's a little different. But again, I don't know if I've seen a huge difference, you know, in what I used it for personally with my personal account. But that's just my opinion. I don't know if that's much value to you, but. And my LinkedIn rep probably wouldn't like that either.
Well, I mean, I would just say for a student too, you just focus on that profile first, because I think the premium membership is about, you know, your messaging and whatnot. So, you know, that's a little different than what companies actually see. I think the profile would be the same regardless from a company's perspective if they're looking at your background. So anyone can correct me if I'm wrong on that, but you know, from that perspective, I don't think it affects things. It's more a matter of what you can, how many people you can reach out to and whatnot with that premium level.
Yeah, I think if you're just searching for specific companies and in your field, you won't reach those limits or anything. I think you'll be okay. Another student asked, so with international students recently and with COVID and everything, a lot of international graduates might be struggling with the hiring process if they had to go back to their home country. Are there any abroad options that they can take part of, or any recommendations for international graduates who might be in their home countries right now looking for jobs?
Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have anything along those lines, especially internationally. And quite honestly, even unfortunately, I think even locally, you know, because you'll have some students who need to have like maybe an H-1B or something or even an EAP or something along those lines. And like I said, unfortunately, I know as a bank, we don't, you know, hold or hold those visas or do anything like that. And I know it's something we've talked about, but as of right now, I know it's something that we're not set up for.
Shannon, oh, sorry, Elena.
I'm happy to chime in here and just say that Citi is a worldwide company. We do have positions outside of the United States. With regard to the United States, the immigration situation as it pertains to work visas is very complex right now. I couldn't even begin to broach that in a way that would be fair to it, but there were additional regulations that came out just this week. So it's a broad topic. I'll just put out there, Citi is in many different countries outside of the United States. If there are some students who are not in the US currently, so.
And just coming from, I say, Jamie, did you have anything to add?
Well, we're we're a nationwide company with offices in Singapore and Hong Kong as well. And so even though we're all virtual, right, even the students and interns and those who had to go back to their home country, unfortunately, they were not able to start with us because we're just not set up as an employer to work in different countries at this time. So right now, the opportunities are limited for our firm. If you're in Singapore or Hong Kong, we have branch offices there where we still continue to have possible opportunities, but we're kind of in the same boat. It's just a difficult time right now for those international students, and we understand.
And I just want to throw in from a Career Center perspective that, we're always there to work with you. So if you're a student or an alumni who, if you're an international student who's, found yourself back home, who's having trouble reaching out to people, what I like to try to do is it may not be that it's someone who's going to be able to offer you a position, but it's trying to connect you with some people who can talk you through. It may be something just like this, where you can start making connections, and it may be someone who knows someone. You're still going to want to network. You're going to have to do that virtually. It's going to be infinitely more difficult, but you've just got to persevere. And that's where we kind of talk through that too. Stay positive, persevere, and use your connections. And the one thing is use your connections on campus, whether that be faculty members, whether that it be an advisor, someone who is in a mentorship position, or if you did an internship, reach out to the organization that maybe you did an internship with, talk with some people who were there. They may be able to start connecting you with people where there may be opportunities. My biggest thing is stay focused and stay positive and keep going forward. Don't give up. And as always, you can reach out to us.
We did have another question come through on the chat. We had a few more minutes. And it had to do with interviewing someone who might be a match for the position, but lack years of experience. Maybe you could elaborate, would you consider interviewing that person, or maybe some tips to highlight some traits that they might have and experience?
I would say it depends. I mean, if it's I'm looking for a CEO and they don't have experience, then then I'm not gonna do that. But if there's positions that honestly, if they aren't even necessarily entry level, but if I look at it and I see somebody has the skill set that aligns to it, but maybe they weren't doing a particular job in particular, but maybe they have the customer service skills, or they have what other skills that I think are in the same vein as the position, then I would definitely consider interviewing that person, because the reality of it is that I know personally is that you get a lot of these job descriptions that are years old, and they're just templates of a template, and it just says 7 years of experience, when the reality is that job's probably changed 3 or 4 times over, and really you could probably get away with somebody with 2 or 3 years of experience, and that can really pick up on whatever task it is quickly, but again, you'll find you'll be able to pull a lot of that out of that person on having a good interview with them, if they're able to articulate everything that they were doing, if they've done their research again on the position, and can provide examples of where they've done similar tasks. I would definitely look at it without a doubt.
And I think Elena, when she gave the advice earlier, brought up a good point, really looking at that job description and writing, the skill sets that you have that align with it. But even if it's not the exact skill set, like being able to highlight a transferable skill, right? So, we often look at transferable skill sets all the time, especially for our entry-level opportunities. So those are things that we look for quite often. So.
Excellent. Anything else to add to that, or no? Elena?
No.
Okay.
No, I would just say the phrase equivalent experience comes up a lot in our world. So yes, XYZ or equivalent experience is certainly something that recruiters consider. So.
Excellent. Rachel, did we have a couple more come through that you want to read as far as questions? Are we about out of time?
Yeah, there was one more, so we'll kind of wrap up there. LinkedIn photos should you invest in a professional photo being taken? Are there best practices to follow for your LinkedIn profile photos? Any advice there?
I mean, I would say it should definitely resemble a professional headshot. Now, whether you have to pay someone to do that or not, that's at your discretion. You certainly can get a very nice photo that, you're in a suit, collared shirt, headshot, from a friend or family member, right? But it certainly wouldn't hurt to have it professionally done. But I always try to be cognizant about, where costs need to be invested. So if I, I wouldn't say that it must be a professionally done one, but you do want it to look like a headshot, not casual out on the weekend. This is my photo for LinkedIn.
Yeah, completely agree. A nice, kind of clean background, I think works best. But like you said, not good night on Friday picture,
Agreed. Keep it professional.
All right, I think Shannon has one more question he wants to throw out there, and then we'll wrap it up with final thoughts. Shannon, I think you're on mute.
I have too many windows open. Thanks, Donnie. So yeah, we had one more question come through, and it's about cover letters. And so it's the one thing that students always ask us about. And this is one that kind of gets to the core of it. How thoroughly do you read those cover letters? And then are there specific things that you're looking for in that cover letter if you are kind of picking through it?
I'll go first. So for me personally, I don't look at the cover letter. I'll go right to the resume, and then and I think if I'm interested enough, then I'll go back to the cover letter to see if it affirms anything or mentions anything that maybe I had questions about. But for me, I'm kind of a right to the resume type of person. But again, if it at the very smallest piece has piqued my interest enough, then I'll go and I'll read through and I'll sift through the cover letter. So it's probably kind of a gray answer, if you will, but and maybe it's preference amongst the recruiter or what have you. But like I said, for me, like I said, I go right to the resume. Let me see what you were doing, and that's understanding not everybody's a resume writer, right? So I completely get that, and that's when I'll go back to that cover letter sometimes. So.
Jamie or Elena, any
Yeah.
different take on that?
No, I mean, I think it's a personal preference by the recruiter and or hiring manager. I honestly take the same approach. I go straight to the resume, and then if it I mean, I don't think it's a waste of time, right? It's either going to confirm what I think or shift my thought process as to whether or not to move forward with this candidate or not. I think the biggest mistake that I see in cover letters is whenever I go back and I read the cover letter to make sure that it aligns with what I'm reading on the resume and reading on the application, is that the cover letter might allude to a different role, right? So it's like you're applying for this, for a customer service role, but your cover letter is written like you're applying for an accounting role. It kind of makes me think, wait a minute, and they don't really want this opportunity. I might choose to bring in, candidate B. So it's not a waste of time by any means, but don't let it hurt you, right? Make it be accurate, make it be right, make it accurately reflect the role that you're applying for. So.
Yeah, I was happy to let everyone else go first on that one, because it's, I don't think professional etiquette is such that we're getting rid of cover letters yet. And so I'm always hesitant to tell people, no, you don't need to do it. Because it just, I don't know when that hiring manager is going to ask me, well, did they submit a cover letter? I still feel it's a best practice, and it can vary widely from company to company. But what do recruiters look at? I mean, absolutely, that resume is, the backbone of that application. But one other thing that, was alluded to is that the cover letter can answer a lot of questions too. So if there's something that, maybe a recruiter would look at your resume and not be able to piece together exactly why you're applying for the role. And I mean, in the sense of, the positions in St. Louis and you currently reside in Seattle. You know, you can put in the cover letter looking to relocate, or I am relocating, I will be there in September. Things like that are very helpful and really can be explained more clearly in a cover letter than say on your resume. So I do look to the cover letter to clear some of those things up, and they are very useful in that regard as well. So.
Well, and one thing that we throw in from a career center standpoint also is that's your first piece of professional communication. I mean, if I'm an employer, if I'm a hiring manager and I'm asking for a cover letter, typically it's to see how you communicate, how you can concisely get across a point. Because if your cover letter is poorly written, then a lot of times I know that you're probably going to be sending emails that are either poorly written or semi-poorly written. And so it may not be that the cover letter is going to get you the job, but it may cost you the job if it's a poorly written cover letter. So that we always throw that out.
I want to ask just one quick question because it came through. So people are being encouraged to utilize videos to express their skills. Do you have an opinion of a video that gets attached to an application or email to a hiring manager? Why or why
not? Right now at TD Ameritrade, I don't know if our platform will allow us to upload a video and attach it with an application. I could be wrong. I mean, we have Workday. I feel like it's one of the best platforms, but we're not leveraging that right now at our firm. I'm sure that will be the way of the future, but we're not leveraging videos in that way right now. All of our interviewing is live right now. So if you're on a video, you're live with a hiring manager.
And I will say too, at Citi, we have done some trials with that. It's not currently in practice on a widespread basis with us. I think some of that depends on the industry. You know, I don't have a lot of experience recruiting creatives, right? But I think there are certain industries where that absolutely would make a whole lot of sense. I don't see it being a widespread trend in financial services right now.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, we haven't tried it.
They also asked, sorry, we'll make this the last question. I know we keep saying that, but if a candidate wanted to send a video to introduce themselves before an interview is given, has that ever been done? Have you ever seen, or would that stand out to you?
I think that showing that interest is very important. You want to always make sure your communication is very professional and is such that it's not almost a distraction to the role. So I wouldn't say it's something that I'm seeing done broadly. Again, potentially based on the industry or the company, it may be something that you could bring up with a recruiter, but I think if someone were to ask me that as one of my candidates, I would likely indicate that, you know, I'm not going to tell them they can't, but that the interview really will suffice for, you know, the opportunity to speak with that manager.
I think.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think it's the company that you're applying for, right? And I think, I agree with Elena. If someone asked me the same thing, I would say, you know what, something more effective for now would be to send, you know, a quick introduction note via LinkedIn, right? Is probably how I would pivot that for now, but that's for our company today. That answer could change in 6 months, right? So times are changing.
And that's what I was going to add. I was just going to add that it's one thing that, you know, somebody who was interested in sharing a video could possibly link that out through their LinkedIn page. Make sure your LinkedIn page is on your, you know, that their recruiters can access through that through your resume, and that they can go out and if that's available to them, they can go look at it if they choose.
Okay, well, we are over on time, but I wanted to answer everybody's question. I just want to thank our hosts, Donnie and Shannon, for kind of putting this together. It's been a really good experience to kind of start these roundtable discussions, and we will continue to do them, so you're more than welcome to join in. If you're kind of debating industries or looking to switch industries, we will definitely have more of those coming up in the future, and we will keep you updated on those. To our panelists, we really appreciate your feedback. It's always good to hear what are the current trends, especially in those industries specifically, because students are asking, alums are asking all of those things. So Donnie or Shannon, do you have any closing comments that you want to say?
I just want to thank everyone for joining us today. And obviously, Rachel put that on the graphic here that the session is recorded and posted on the website. So I'd encourage those that know people that are seeking some advice to go ahead and look and view this session. And also, I just encourage you to go to each one of these organizations' websites and look for jobs to apply to and connect with them on LinkedIn.
Yeah, and I just wanted to reiterate, thank each of you for taking part. Our panelists have been awesome, and this is a great resource. And I just want to say also, we look forward, as the year moves on, continuing the relationships with each of you, and as we do career fairs, whether they be virtual or face-to-face, we'll definitely keep each of you, you stay in contact and keep each of you in mind when we're doing events on campus.
Thank you, definitely. Appreciate it. Thanks for the invite.
Thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you. This has been fun.
Thank you so much. I hope you all have a great day, and this will be recorded. If you have any questions, just feel free to reach out to us. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.